Is cyberbullying getting worse? Well, let's dive into that in this week's episode. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Every Damn Week this week. My name is John Kirby. And I told you in previous episodes I was going to talk to you about my book really quick and just tell you where I'm at. You're my accountability people, so here's my accountability for this week. I'm actually on chapter 2 now. I've completed the intro and chapter 1 and chapter 2. So making really good progress. I'm hoping to be done by the end of the year. Fingers crossed. I'll keep giving you my updates as my accountability partner. You can make sure to keep me accountable for that. But for this week, we're going to talk about cyberbullying. And is it getting worse? And I bring it up now because it's election season. The least wonderful time of the year is upon us, where Election Day is coming up in November. And so this leads to people going out on social media and posting controversial topics and which spark responses. But it's not just the political season that is causing this. Cyberbullying just seems to be on the increase. Now, if you recall, social media experiment was supposed to be a friendly thing. You're supposed to be, connecting up with your friends and family. You're supposed to find people you've lost touch with. I've loved social media for that particular thing. I have caught up with so many people that I lost touch with when I was growing up and just over the years, and it's been nice to reconnect with people. I like to share pictures of my family and the activities I'm doing, and I get to share some memes and things of that nature, and it can be for more constructive things like this, the podcast that I do, and other things that I post out there. The most popular sites that are out there, of course, are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, just to name a few. But more and more, especially over the last decade, cyberbullying on social media has become commonplace. I go out there and I see people who just troll. It's almost like they decide that that's all they're going to do is troll. Some of the more common ones I've seen recently are when people go to sell things on Facebook Marketplace. And some people will be asking way too much for things, but the people who respond are rather unkind and brutal. There's a simple solution to that. Just ignore it. Don't buy it. Move on. I find it funny how people want to become the police over these things, and so they decide to berate the individual who posted it. Whether they're right or wrong isn't up for us to decide, but people decide to start bullying. That's just one example of the bullying. I mean, I used the political season, election season. People get very touchy and get very emotional about various things, and they get triggered, and they start going into these tit-for-tat type conversations. I've experienced those, and I've gone through those, and it just seems to be getting worse. But one of the things I want to share, because it's a broad spectrum of cyberbullying, because you've got the political side, but you've also got what's happening on the teenager side as well. And there's a lot of, well, I'll just share a statistic that I have here. According to the Pew Research Center, 59% of U.S. teenagers have experienced bullying or harassment online. 42% say the most common type of harassment was name calling. 32% said that someone was spreading false rumors about them. And 25% said they received unwanted explicit images. Now, sadly, I bring this up because sadly I've heard of way too many cases where cyberbullying of online teenagers has resulted in suicide. In fact, I know a few cases personally. It is awful. And it's a new tool that the bully has at their disposal to use against someone that they don't like, or someone they think is easy to be picked on, or whatever reason. I mean, we'll get into some of the reasons why people decide they want to bully others here shortly. But one of the things that really surprised me too is obviously we're not talking about just teenagers who are being cyberbullied here. We actually, it's becoming a more widespread problem. And the Pew Research Center has another chart that I'm going to show you here really quick. This one concerns me greatly. It shows here, as you see in the title, adults under 30 are more likely than any other age group to report experiencing any form of harassment online. I mean, you look at these statistics. Adults 18 to 29, 64% have said that they've seen any online harassment. 51% saying it's offensive name calling. Purposeful embarrassment, that's 40%. 29% involve a physical threat. 21% stalking. A sustained harassment, continual harassment's 20%. And then, of course, sexual harassment's 25%. But in that 18 to 29 age group, that concerns me because that, in my mind, that's the group that most recently would come out of the high school era of cyberbullying, where that was probably very commonplace. And so it carried forward into their young adult lives from that time period. But as you can see, even as we got older, 30 to 49, which is, I'm just outside that age group, we got the same problem. The majority of what we see is offensive name calling, purposeful embarrassment. 49% of adults 30 to 49 are saying that they've seen some sort of harassment or some sort of cyberbullying online. And then there's the 50 and above. Sometimes we get referred to as Karens. That it's not quite as bad at that level because hopefully the maturity level is better. But I'm not sure it's just maturity. I think there's more to it than that. So let's kind of talk about, why do people cyberbully others? There's a whole litany of reasons. I mean, it just goes on and on. But some of the ones that I've come up with is makes them feel powerful. That would be a very common one for, in my mind, for the teenage era, where a sense of power over somebody else. But it can also happen in the office place where somebody decides they have power over that individual. There's a level of anonymity, depending on how it's done. Cyberbullying doesn't necessarily have to come from a named account of somebody you know. Someone can go out there and create a brand new account under an anonymous name of some sort, create a fake name, and become a troll. That creates a new cyberbully opportunity for someone to have no consequences whatsoever in their mind, where they could just go out there and troll and cyberbully people. So what else? It makes them feel popular, because if they're doing it and their friends see it, that it just builds popularity. Or somebody, an adult, does it and they're wanting to get the popularity response from everybody who agrees with them to jump on board on whatever that is that they're bullying that person over. Social pressure. They think the behavior is normal and socially acceptable. That's becoming more commonplace here because we're living in a digital world more. And a lot of people, a lot of kids, that's all they've known. That's all they know is the digital world. So they're coming from that background. And as a result, they don't know anything else. In fact, I think I saw a study that said like 25%, only 25% of teenagers or kids will actually go out and be outside the world, leave the digital world and go out and interact with people. Most are online, trying to do things online. The other thing is that they don't see the receiver that they're bullying as a person. Because when you've got your phone, when you've got your device, you're just tapping into the device. You don't see what's happening on the other end. You don't have a visual or an emotional connection. Digital communication makes things very impersonal, and therefore it makes it easy for someone to feel no repercussion for what they do. They just figure, I just type that message and put the phone down and walk away. That is dangerous. Not seeing that as a person, the other person on the other end. There are some who do it because it's funny and they do it for pure entertainment. That's another freaky thing. People take pleasure from causing pain on others. And that one in particular really annoys me because of the fact that I know of what it can do. I've heard the stories, and I've gotten to see what has happened to teenagers who have had that happen to them. And if somebody's doing it for fun, no. Lives are at stake here. So that's inappropriate. Let's get into the political side or whatever. Triggered by someone's words or point of view. That right there is another one where you see something that really upsets you. You decide you've got to go and attack that individual for their point of view. Another reason people will do it, they're lonely and they're ignored. So they lash out. This is their way of getting attention. And then there's mental health issues that could go around, a whole litany of mental health issues that could be a part of that. So what are the effects on a victim? Well, I've talked about the perfect example of what happens with a teenager who's pushed into a corner. I mean, the numbers for suicide are growing. They're getting larger and larger. The person they feel angry. There's feelings of distress. There's increased feelings of depression and anxiety that come with this. Insomnia. I mean, if you're in a cyberbully battle with somebody and you can't get your mind off of it, you're not going to sleep. It's going to spin around in your head forever and ever. It creates low self-esteem, and it can create social isolation where somebody just doesn't want to be a part of the social world anymore, whether it's digital or in person. You could drive a kid could be driven to not want to go to school, or could be driven to do something else. And that's where the tragedy occurs. So how do we stop cyberbullying? Well, this is always a tough one because there's so many different angles that you could come at with this. Cyberbullying, essentially, it comes down to this. Cyberbullying thrives on status and approval. So anytime a bully decides that they're going to post something out there, they're hoping to get people to jump on the bandwagon and join them, or they're hoping to gain popularity. And somebody goes, "Yeah, I agree. Hey, yeah, you're right," and side with them. That fuels their desire to want to keep doing that. So, because of that, the first thing we do is really the best thing we should try to do is don't take part in it. Ignore them. Don't give them the time of day. Anybody who's ignored for being a cyberbully, I don't have any pity for someone who gets ignored. You brought that loneliness on yourself. So that's the first thing we should do is ignore them. But if necessary, you can call out the bully and reject their actions. I've had friends who have been attacked online by their character, their actual character being attacked online. I've stood up for them. And I've literally called the person out saying, this is not appropriate. I know this person. This person is a good person, and what you're saying is false. And I will do that if necessary. And so I challenge people to do the same thing. If you think this person's being a bully and they're manufacturing something about this person, or they're saying something isn't true, stand up, call them out, put them in their place. Now, if you are someone who is receiving cyberbullying, or you know somebody who is, you should contact the police, collect your information, collect the evidence, and present it to the police by all means. Because pretty much everywhere now, there are laws about cyberbullying, and the police will take those seriously. Now, as a parent, I have kids, and they're, on and off social media, and so as a parent, from that perspective, what do you do to stop cyberbullying or to handle that? So, the very first thing is talk to your kids. Make sure they're aware of cyberbullies and what they do and all the different aspects of a cyberbully. Help them understand what cyberbullying really is. Now, if they are cyberbullied, you need to instruct them on how to collect that evidence, because that evidence is key in fighting that cyberbully. And then you can take that, depending upon the circumstance. If the kid that's cyberbullying them is a fellow student, you can go to the school, and the school can do something about that. Or if they're not, you can then also go to the police for that as well. It applies just the same. Now, here's a tough subject here. What if you are the cyberbully? Well, I would hope that you, first of all, can recognize that you're a cyberbully if you're doing it. And I'm going to be the first one to admit, 10 years ago, I was very political. I really had some very strong political views. And at the same time, I was not in a very good mental state. And so as a result, I'd troll. I would actually troll out there, and I would actually do this. So I am just as guilty as some people out there are who do this. I have since recognized what I was doing, and I wasn't threatening people. I wasn't, trying to destroy people, but I trolled, and I fought people. I looked for a fight. And so I've recognized that I was a cyberbully and I was doing that. And I have stopped, because that's just not right. And you have to notice and pay attention to your mental state and recognize where you are. You have to pay attention to what's happening in your life. Did you have a breakup? Are you just lonely? Are you is work stressing you out? Are you bored? Essentially, if you're experiencing something and you're not in the right place, and you go to the social media sites and you go looking for a fight, best thing to do, put the phone down, turn your computer off, walk away from social media for a while, get your frame of mind set right. There is no excuse ever to cyberbully anybody. And it's wrong. It is absolutely wrong. You have to recognize there are people on the other side. And so, please, if you are a cyberbully, or if you are wondering if you are, just do a self-check. Just make sure. But remember, the social media experiment is intended to be a good one. That was the whole point. This was our way of connecting around the world with our friends and family, and even people we don't know, or people that we want to admire and follow. This is our chance to do good with this tool. Cyberbullying is not productive. It is more harmful than good, and costs lives. Or at least it can really create serious damage for someone. So please, both sides of it, if you're a cyberbully or if you are a recipient of cyberbullying, take action and don't put up with it. I'm going to put some links down below for anybody who wants to get information about how to deal with cyberbullying or to report cyberbullying. So please go out there, and those links will be available to you below. Now, what about censoring people to stop cyberbullying, or just censoring people in general? Well, that's a whole other topic altogether, folks, and that we'll talk about in the next episode. Thank you so much for coming here and joining me again for another podcast this week. Take care, and we'll talk to you next time.